Today, you will be learning about the inspiring life of Kim Dae-jung. Kim Dae-jung was a Korean figure who is not as well known in the English-speaking world as his story deserves. He was an exemplar of positive history, or the focus on historical narratives and people that move society and humanity forward. He displayed several virtues, but this video will particularly be focusing on fortitude and reconciliation, which will be defined later in this video. Hopefully, today you will learn about the works of this late South Korean president and maybe even be inspired to follow in his footsteps as an advocate for peace and human rights. The first half of this video is dedicated to Kim Dae-jung's struggles to establish himself as a democratic politician. It will be dedicated to his fortitude throughout this process, which is the ability to endure through struggles and failures. After this section, there will be a wrap-up discussing how his actions displayed this virtue. While Kim Dae-jung had been part of the democratic movement in Korea since the 50s, he got his true start in politics being elected to the Korean National Assembly in 1961. Under the guidance of his mentor and the Prime Minister at the time, Jung, Kim pursued both this political role in the Democratic Party and Christianity, although he would not become truly Christian until later in his life. While Jung was overtaken by Park Chung-hee in a coup in 1961, Kim would be re-elected to the National Assembly in 1963 and 1967, and would continue to be outspoken against the authoritarian rule of Park. He ran against Park for president in 1971, but lost despite winning over 40% of the votes. Shortly after the election, Kim would survive his first assassination attempt. Kim exiled himself to Japan in 1972 to continue his work advocating for democracy in Korea. For this, he was kidnapped from a hotel in Tokyo in 1973 by the South Korean Secret Service. During this event, Kim was taken by boat to the waters surrounding South Korea. He was meant to be thrown overboard but was rescued by an ambassador to the U.S. who had been a previous supporter of him as a politician. Kim claims that during this time as a captive, he had an encounter with Jesus Christ that furthered his belief as a Christian and solidified his belief that he needed to continue to fight for the Korean people. Kim was arrested for his continued support of democracy in 1976, although he was released to house arrest in 1978 and then fully in 1979. He was imprisoned again in 1980 under charges of sedition and conspiracy, and was originally sentenced to death. However, after a change in leadership, his sentence was changed to 20 years in prison. He only spent a few years of this sentence in prison, and during that time he studied philosophy and logicism, developing his beliefs in democracy, morality, and religion. Leaving Korea for the U.S. for medical treatment in 1982, Kim was exiled there for 3 years. He spent this time teaching for Harvard's Center for International Affairs. Kim returned to Korea in 1985 to re-establish himself as a politician for democracy. He ran for president once more in 1987 and then in 1982, losing both bids but being elected to the National Assembly for both years. After seeing the long, hard fight Kim Dae-jung endured in his early life as a politician and advocate, it is clear that he displayed the virtue of fortitude. He survived assassination attempts, imprisonment, and exile, all while continuing to fight for what he knew was right. The second half of this video will focus on Kim Dae-jung's actions and policies as the president of South Korea. It will focus on the virtue of reconciliation, or the ability to reach mutual forgiveness and agreements over past actions. There will also be a wrap-up for this half of the video. Kim Dae-jung finally won the presidency in 1998. He instituted many policies, like the mass participatory economy and a better framework for welfare, but he is primarily remembered for his sunshine policy with North Korea. The following is a clip from a news reporting at Kim Dae-jung's presidential inauguration.
Inauguration Day begins in South Korea. The new president, a former dissident, brings to office a promise that he will practice democracy and not cater to vested interests. Kim Dae-jung could savor the moment. Former military governments had tried to have him executed. Nearly 50,000 guests attended the ceremony, among them the American pop star Michael Jackson. Taking the presidential oath, Kim completed South Korea's first transfer of power from a ruling to an opposition party. In his address, Kim pledged to actively pursue reconciliation and cooperation with communist North Korea. He called for an exchange of presidential envoys between Seoul and Pyongyang, or a summit if the North wants it. And he told South Korea's powerful but foot-dragging conglomerates to make the economic reforms that the IMF demands. New presidents are usually allowed a honeymoon in office by their opponents, not Kim Dae-jung. The gloves have already come off. Jacko may be a pal, but Kim needs more friends in parliament controlled by the still smarting former rulers. They'd refused to approve Kim's chosen prime minister. Now, the brawl begins.
Under the Sunshine Policy, Kim Dae-jung promoted cooperation with North Korea to promote economic policies that would be beneficial to both countries and reunions between family members separated by the establishment of North and South Korea in 1948. His Sunshine Policy allowed the first Inter-Korean Summit to occur in 2000. Later that year, Kim Dae-jung won the Nobel Peace Prize for not only his Sunshine Policy but also his lifelong struggle to promote democracy. The following is a clip from Kim's Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech.
It is most significant and timely for us to look back on the issue of war and peace in the past century, and to ponder about peace and the welfare of humanity in the 21st century. In the past 20th century, there were more than 250 wars of various sizes around the world. As a result, an astounding 110 million people lost their lives, of which about 60% or 63 million people were civilians.
Kim's presidency ended in 2003, where he was succeeded by Roh Moo-hyun. Kim Dae-jung passed away shortly after the end of his presidency in 2009. He is buried in the Seoul National Cemetery. The presidential portion of Kim Dae-jung's life clearly displays the virtue of reconciliation. With his Sunshine Policy, he helped improve North and South Korea's relations to the betterment of individuals and families alike. As this video concludes, hopefully you've learned about the struggle and virtues of Kim Dae-jung. For more information, please see the sources listed.